of that. That's like putting you on the I'm a strategic professional that is a consultant that is here to be the answer to your prayers and figure out what you need and solve it. Welcome to Answer the Call, where we help Christians discern what they feel called to do and practically land a job that's aligned with it. My name is Kelsey Kemp, and I'm here with Audrey Bagarus, my fellow career coach that works with me at the Call to Career. And we are talking, as you can tell from the title, about why the hiring manager might reject you after the second interview. Generally, we're talking about the general order of how the recruiting process goes down. And you'll notice that 2 weeks ago, we talked about why your application might be getting rejected. And then last week, we talked about why you might be getting rejected after the phone screening first interview with the recruiter. And now we're focusing on, okay, if you get to that second round, that's traditionally with the hiring manager, i.e. who your boss would be. Here are the things that they are looking for and triggers that would cause them to be like, okay, this isn't the right person. And why are we focusing on this? It's so we can help you fix it. It's not because we want to be negative at all. We're pretty positive girlies, but we're going to help you understand what they're looking for and challenges that you can work around so you could get that next level job in the industry of your choice this year, which is what we are hoping for you. That's why we create these episodes. So a preview of what you're going to hear from us today. In the last two episodes, you heard pretty lengthy lists of things that you can do and change, and quite a lengthy list of reasons of things that you could fix, like basics. I would say these are kind of like table stakes. We talked about etiquette, professionalism, red flags, and making sure that you have the right experience. But today, I want to talk about one thing, not a ton of things, one thing that has a lot of nuance to it. And I do feel like is one of the main reasons that is perhaps non-obvious for everyone that hiring managers might be rejecting you. And it is this: droning on about things they don't want to hear. You might have phrased this in your mind in a lot of other ways, but this is a problem that I would say this is how hiring managers are thinking as they're sitting back in the chair listening to you. Drone on about things that they don't want to hear, that aren't relevant to the job and are not impressing them. So let's get into it. Most of the time, I'm going to start with a real bold hot take before Ms. Bagarus picks up with the rest of the topic. This is a hot take. Most of the time, an experienced hiring manager can tell within the first 5 minutes if you have a real shot at this job or not. Because they're asking just the two most basic questions. They might have a prepared list of varying levels of complex questions, but in their heart of hearts, they are wondering two things. Do you seem like the kind of person that would succeed here? The kind of person that would succeed on my team? In terms of energy, professionalism, personality, it's a vibe. And because they've seen a lot of people go in and out of their doors. Okay, so that's just natural. And the second question that they're fundamentally asking is, do you speak about your experience in a way that fits what I'm looking for? Like, do you know how to do what I need you to do? That is like the most fundamental question. Do you seem like the kind of person that would fit here and succeed here? And do you know how to do what I need you to do? If you get a check mark on both of those, you most likely have the job. And you might be thinking, duh, but like, how do I do that? Audrey, how does this look practically? Like, what skill and strategy do they need to bring into the interview that will totally change the way that, and like prevent them from making the mistake of droning on about things that they don't want to hear? Go for it.
First, I'm going to say what not to do, which is to fall into how people just typically fall into interviews. Let them ask you questions, answer, question, answer, question. It's very transactional. So what is different, or what I want you to do different, is turn it into a conversation right away. Right away. And this helps you because you get them to say exactly the kind of person that they are looking to hire. You take out all of the guesswork. It is so exhausting to sit there and try and guess what people want from you in an interview. And for some reason, it feels taboo to just ask them. And it's more nuanced than that, because you don't want to just ask, like, what do you need from me in this interview? You can ask in more strategic ways, which we're going to talk about, but you get them to share the exact kind of person that they're looking to hire and what they need you to do. Get them to say it in their own words. And you might be thinking, well, obviously the job description has that all listed out. No, job descriptions are great for generic responsibilities. Maybe they have some specific things on it, but it is not a comprehensive overview of the job, especially because there's a lot of times a few hands on the job description. The hiring manager might have written some of it when they wrote the internal job requisition, but then the recruiter gets a hold of it and they're putting it in language to translate to the person that they're trying to hire. So things get lost in translation for sure. So absolutely, I want you to learn from the hiring manager's mouth themselves what they're looking for. And this will allow you to know exactly what they want to hear throughout your examples and the rest of the interview. And then also, this is the fun psychological trick, actually, that I like, is they already start associating those qualities with you subconsciously because they're telling them to you. And because they're actually saying them out loud, which in other interviews they are probably not doing, because people do that thing that I mentioned earlier where they just fall into that typical transactional role in an interview. Like,
passive. They're being passive of receiving and reacting to questions versus proactive and on the offense of asking, well, what do you need? What's the real challenge that you would need me to solve in this role? What's the difference between good and great in terms of like the next audit manager that you want to hire? All of that, that's like putting you on the, I'm a strategic professional that is a consultant that is here to be the answer to your prayers and figure out what you need and solve it.
I even see that in body language of leaning back versus leaning forward, being in it, being excited, talking with your hands, all the things where we have a podcast episode from a while ago called Energy is Everything. And we talked about it a little bit more in there. Leaning forward, being proactive makes a huge difference. And that comes through in body language, sure, but also very importantly in how you're speaking and the questions that you're asking. So Kelsey, can you share in more detail how the listener might do that in practice?
Oh, I would love to. Yeah, because I really want you to know, just tactically, this is not complicated. And it will forever make all of your interviews easier, less stressful, and a happier result. It's honestly just as simple as this. First off, you start the interview on a conversational tone, briefly finding something to connect on. You might be thinking, great, I already do that. But don't take that too far. I want to highlight brief. Like, the way to show that you're a serious professional, that is also a great person to work with, is that you could briefly find something to connect on and then keep a respect for their time by keeping the conversation moving towards where it needs to go. Because don't just try to be like a football bestie or an alumni from the same college. Just briefly find something to connect on, ask how they're doing or how their weekend was, and then get into it. Because I have had multiple business owner friends tell me how shocked they are at the frequency at which they get into an interview with a candidate that they thought was going to be good, but it ends up being a person that spends 20 minutes of the precious interview time talking about how proud they are of their kid that's in college right now. And it's like, I'm so happy for you, bro, but like, we have an agenda here that we do need to get to. So please don't take that too far to a level that's disrespectful and unhelpful in the use of time. So do start it on a conversational tone, briefly find somebody to connect on, obviously. Then you're likely going to be prompted by the hiring manager to share some more about yourself and why you're interested or a good fit for this role. This is obviously something that most of you, I think, are expecting to be asked like an opener to the interview, I just want to encourage you, keep it tight and throw in something that shows you are credible, throw in some credibility markers, and then give your real reason for why you're interested and a great fit for this. Like, don't be shy. Be like, share based on what you know about the company and this role, why you think you'd be great at it and why you're in this interview right now. Like, why are you even looking for a job? What was it about your past jobs and past experience that led you to be so convicted that this kind of opportunity is the right one? And keep it tight so then you could go into the difference maker that we're trying to point to in this episode, which is because you might have thought, okay, yeah, I start conversationally. Okay, yeah, I tell them about myself and I try to keep that really strong and relevant to what matters for why am I in this room and why am I a good fit. But then this is where if you are most candidates, you from that point on are going to let them continue to lead the interview and ask whatever they want to ask. And you're going to be on defense mode of answering whatever complicated behavioral or technical question that they have for you. Don't let it go to that yet. Instead, immediately after the tell me about yourself little pitch intro time, ask, what are the specific qualities that you are looking for, that you feel like are needed for this XYZ role? Like, what would it take to knock it out of the park for this team's needs? Like, what are your biggest needs right now as a team? And how is this role going to fulfill them?
Yeah, and one of the questions that I love, it's my favorite question. If you do an interview prep call with me, I'm going to tell you about this question. You actually mentioned it a little bit earlier too, but it's asking what separates good from great in this role. You can word that a couple different ways, but that's the core question. What separates good from great? And I get amazing feedback about this question from people who do interviews where they get really good feedback from the interviewer of, oh, that's a great question. And then they get great information from the answer to that question because right then they are spelling out everything that you need to talk about to then demonstrate why you are a great fit for this role, why you're not just going to come in and hit the marks, you're going to go above and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And like we said earlier, the whole time that they're describing all of those fantastic qualities that their dream candidate will have in this role, they're subconsciously attributing it to you as long as you're likable. I don't want to say like if you're late to the interview, if you have poor hygiene, if you talk in a really irritating way and haven't showed good etiquette, I don't think that you could rest easy knowing like, oh, wow, yeah, they like just attributed all of those positive qualities to me. But if you're building on a firm foundation, it can happen that way. And by the way, if they're kind of caught off guard or, I mean, in a pleasant, surprised way, I don't think that we've ever had a client that said like, this is not a welcome question or that didn't go well. So most likely you're going to get some good information right off the bat. I would encourage you to be open to ask follow-up questions. In order to ace this recruiting process with this company, they need to know that you know exactly what they're looking for and that you are that person. If you do not have all those cards up front, then you are playing blind for the rest of the interview, speaking to just your experience in the past in a way that is not as tailored and relevantly coded as possible for what they're looking for. Or you're just speaking to generic things that you found in the job description that might not be the actual language of requirements on that hiring manager's mind. So do not allow yourself to play blind for the rest of the interview process. Get them to spoon feed you their ideal answers right up front. So do feel free to say, tell me more about that, and ask qualifying questions to make sure you really understand what the qualities, skills, and technical capabilities you will need to be able to demonstrate in order to be able to win this role. And if you don't, you can't. And so after you start off conversationally, allow them to ask like for your opener or prompt you as like an opener statement to tell them about yourself and why you're applying for this role. And then you turn it back on them and turn it conversational, and you ask them about what they're looking for, like why are they hiring, what do they need. Then you don't just allow, there's one more step before you allow them to just go on as planned with their questions. You validate how important those qualities and competencies are based on your experience. Like, oh yeah, I have absolutely seen that in my experience of how important those qualities are. Oh yeah, that's something that I focused on heavily in my last few years at XYZ company. Mm-hmm. Just do a little validation statement to make sure that that's another subconscious anchor to them that you have heard their requirements, and congratulations, your day as a hiring manager is about to be great because you met somebody who understands and can do all those things.
And can I use a dating analogy here, as we love to do? Because imagine maybe you're on first, second, third date and someone asks, what are your goals around family? Do you want to have a family? And you answer, yes, I hope to be married in the next few years and have 3 kids by the time I'm 35 or whatever it is. Wouldn't it be nice to hear back from them? Great, me too. That's aligned with what I'm looking for as well, versus them just going, okay, and then moving on with the date. That validation is so important to say, oh yes, I'm on the same page.
Oh my goodness, that is so genius. And I'm tempted to take this in a more intense direction, but it does relate to the hiring or this interview process, because in my public dating profile, because my husband and I met over Hinge, we didn't, it's not like I put, hey, you must be willing to wait to have sex before, like, until we're married. But that was my hard question. It wasn't publicly facing, but that was my hard internal requirement for, that's my intense filtering question that I will be evaluating, like kind of subconscious cues or like little things that you say to see if you're that kind of person that values that as well, to kind of see if you're like what kind of Christian you are or what level of I follow the Bible you are. And so that was the real question on my mind that they actually needed to answer in the first few dates. And sometimes I would just say it, and I didn't care if it was uncomfortable, because I didn't want to waste their time and money if they weren't on that same page on further dates. But the people, like my husband, was the one that wanted to make sure that was the case about me too. And you were so apt to bring up this example, Audrey, because after that first date, I was like, the odds that this is the winner are already sky high above average, just because my hardest filtering question was answered in the affirmative. And it, of course, the other things like, oh, good personality, blah, blah, blah. But like the generic things on the job description is, oh, are we compatible? Do we enjoy our time together? And I'm like, I could enjoy my time with a lot of people. But can we enjoy your time together, and do you meet my like most intense requirements that aren't always written on my forehead? And that is also applicable to jobs.
Mm-hmm. Well, and speaking of Kevin, you had mentioned to me earlier that he had a really good response to this conversation, right?
Okay,
about the job search part of it.
Yeah, because I've been using him as my muse, especially as he's going through our case study, as he is going through interviewing candidates for a few open roles on his team right now. And so on 2 nights ago, I asked him, like, how did his interview go today? Because I knew that he had one. And he said, this is like such, when we had this conversation, I was like, oh my goodness, all of my thoughts on what the most simple and most core thing you need to do in a hiring manager interview were so validated through his example. So he said, like right off the bat with his tone, I knew like this wasn't the person. He said she had good corporate experience, but I could tell that she's not used to being autonomous and creating reports from scratch like we need. We need like a real just autonomous player. And she's someone that's only worked for big companies. So I kind of assume that she probably isn't practiced in that because she's been a part of like large finance departments. Where you're more niche rather than controlling everything. And I said, wait, did she know? Did she know that you were looking for someone who is used to being autonomous and creating reports from scratch? Like, is that specific language that you know that she knew you were looking for? And he said, sure, I don't think so. And I was like, bingo! Bingo! He went on to say she was a big talker that just chatted the whole time. Like of the 60 minutes allotted, she chatted for 50 minutes. And I had to cut her off to make sure if she had any questions, we would be able to get to those transparently and in the most respectful way possible. He did say like he was getting bored because she was sharing too much background information instead of cutting to the point in her examples. She would share like 5 to 10 minute answers rather than 2 to 4 minute, here's specifically what you need to know. Here's the point of the story. I'm not going to bury the lead. I hate that kind of communication so much. Honestly, you know that like the bane of my existence is people who bury the lead and are like going into the weeds and sharing, oh, well, this person on my team and this person on my team and this particular tool and season and like here's why we were doing that project. And I'm like, but can you just like highlights? I don't need to know all of this. That stretches it out into a 5 to 10 minute answer that is irrelevant. I don't need to know this stuff. And your punchline wasn't even what I really wanted to hear. And so when I asked him if he thought it would have gone better if she asked what you were looking for specifically from the beginning. And so she can make it more conversational and tailor her answers to what you're looking for. His face lit up and he said, absolutely. That, and not like my guy is not an emphatic guy. He's like pretty like steady, but the conviction he had when he said absolutely, and then followed that up by telling me that's what I always do when I'm interviewing. And I believe it's the main reason that I get almost every role that I interview for. First off, that's my guy right there. That's my guy right there. And second off, wow, okay, I just felt so validated that my guess was correct, that even in the example this week in my husband's hiring process, he ran into yet another candidate, and it's not just picking on this one person. This is common. It's a common theme that people drone on about things that the hiring manager does not need to hear to answer the question, are you the kind of person that is the right fit would succeed on my team? And can you do what I need you to know how to do? That's that.
So I can see people already, the objections are coming up already. I know it. And people that are listening to this thinking, what if I don't actually have all the right experience? We hear that all the time. And the answer to that is that most of us don't have 100% of the experience that they're looking for. But imperfect people get jobs all the time. In new fields, people pivot all the time. And what it boils down to is that honesty and authenticity in your answers. Be honest. Don't try to fake it. Don't try to circle the drain or run around the question, whatever language you want to use, beat around the bush. Frame it in a positive way. in an authentic and honest way, but also positively about what you can add to the position and what your strategy is for getting up to speed on anything that they need done. My favorite trick here is to share an example of how you have done that before. And it's a way to speak exactly to the problem. The problem here is, oh, shoot, I don't have that exact experience. How to solve that problem for that is demonstrate an example as relevant, make it relevant to them by sharing, here's an example of how I've actually done that before in maybe something that's slightly adjacent. I had this problem over here. I didn't have experience doing it before. Here's what I did to do that. I'm a quick learner. Here's an example of that. I'm not worried about doing that here because of X, Y, and Z reasons.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And definitely dive into this with your interview prep. Don't ignore it. I think it's so tempting to just hope and pray that they don't ask about it, but that is going to be nagging at you your entire interview. This is where I would really recommend doing visualization prep and visualize them asking your worst nightmare question and how you're going to respond to it.
In a I have chill way.
Yes. Yes, like I have chill, I am confident, I can do new things, and I'll do them successfully.
Yes, and we're not assuming that most of the time you need to flat out say, oh, I don't know how to do that. But sometimes we are all caught in interviews where you have to prepare an answer that's something along the lines of like, while my last role didn't place a lot of emphasis on blah, 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 I have done this other, divert to something more positive that is as relevant as possible. And then go back to, and for that particular thing that you need, I've already, say something that you're doing in your research to get yourself up to speed, or share a strategy that you would use to quickly get up to speed once you're on the inside. And then just leave it at that, because that's kind of the best that you could do. So that's not all the time that you're going to be caught super red-handed, I legit have no idea and have never done that skill that you're asking for. We're expecting that a good amount of the time you can try to relate it to something that you've done in the past. However, I just really do want to say we all get caught sometimes, and when that is the case, people could, as particularly if it's a technical question, people could tell if you're lying, and it's just really uncomfortable. Just be honest. And also, your interviewer knows that you live in the information age, and you could literally say, oh, I will solve this in 2 minutes after the interview, and I can send you the answer. That's just how your job would go. We're all running.
Yeah, that's just demonstrating resourcefulness.
Yeah. And the last note, to spare yourself some grief, because we've talked about, okay, here's the number one mistake that you need to stop making in hiring manager interviews that is making them reject you. Second off, how to exactly fix that. It's not rocket science, but it is artful in the way that we propose you do this. And then third, okay, let's say you don't have all the perfect experience. Here's how you handle that. And we want to validate that as normal. Fourth, this is just a little send-off. This is a little send-off to spare you some grief, because we know that if you do not ask at the end of the interview, what are the expected next steps, and when do you want to have a new hire in place by, or when do you want to extend an offer by, or a potential start date? We know that if you are left in the dark, it just makes your waiting time more unpleasant. And it's really also helpful to get a timeline from them of what next steps you should expect, so that it gives you permission to follow up with by whatever, early next week, Tuesday, whatever they said. And following up is totally fine. I really honestly wish that people would stop overthinking it. It's perfectly fine to follow up with people. That's just normal. And yeah, so just ask for next steps and make sure that you have their email so you could send a thank you note. If you do all those things, I really do think, in addition to all the advice that we gave in the first and second episode in this series, if you excuse me, if you pair that advice with what we said today, I really do think you are going to do so much better than the average candidate out there. And we hope and pray that this helps you get your dream job offer this year. And if you need further help, of course, there's so much nuance that we could go into about your particular situation and getting you one-on-one help to get you through whatever is causing you to be stuck. Then reach out to us at thecalledcareer.com. Right at the top, there's a schedule a free consultation button, and we can have a consultation with you to see if it is a fit for us to work together. All right, that's that. Be blessed. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To get an even more meaningful head start into your calling, head to thecalledcareer.com, where my fellow career coach Audrey and I have created a whole suite of free resources and tools to help you get clear and get a job today. For those who are definitely ready to land a job or start a business in the next 6 to 12 months, we're here to help you biblically and practically discern your calling through coaching, reflection, and deep market research, identify the job that's aligned with it, even if you currently have no idea what you want, rebrand your resume and LinkedIn to translate your background to appeal to your future boss. P.S. We take this off your plate and do this for you. Also, we'll teach you how to land referrals and get attention from leadership through networking. Again, if that makes you nervous, we have these emails and LinkedIn messages literally written for you so you don't have to sweat. We're also here to give you unlimited interview practice so you're prepared to address every elephant in the room and knock selling yourself out of the park. Then we'll round out with helping you negotiate your salary so you land thousands more. Just so you know, recent clients have gotten $8,000 to $50,000 salary increases, even though they were totally non-traditional candidates. That's because we specialize in helping non-traditional career pivoters land jobs they're ecstatic to serve in. It takes work, but we're here to see you through until the end, when we're celebrating that day that you send me an email in all caps and you say, Kelsey, I got the job. Then you could be on the podcast. But I'll be here until then, keeping you accountable and encouraged by meeting with you literally until you land the job you want, even if that's up to 6 months from now within our program. Apply to join at thecalledcareer.com, and I'll see you next week here at Answer the Call. Bye for now.